The bank had branches in 72 countries. It held the accounts of heads of state, intelligence agencies, and the world's most wanted criminals. For 19 years, it looked like a perfectly legitimate financial institution. It wasn't. Its branches processed drug money for dictators, weapons payments for sanctioned regimes, covert intelligence operations that could never appear on any government ledger, and the life savings of 1.4 million ordinary people who had no idea what was happening. 3 regulators who tried to stop it died under suspicious circumstances. When it finally collapsed, $13 billion was gone. This is the story of BCCI, the Bank of Credit and Commerce International. The bank that served Pablo Escobar, Saddam Hussein, Manuel Noriega, and the CIA at the same time, and the men who built it, protected it, and ultimately buried the truth about what it really was. In 1972, a Pakistani banker named Agha Hasan Abedi had a vision. He wanted to build the first bank of the developing world, a bank that would serve the country's Western financial institutions ignored. Pakistan, Bangladesh, the Middle East, Africa. He was charming, he was brilliant. He spoke about banking as a spiritual calling. Regulators in Britain, the United States, and across the developing world believed him. They shouldn't have. Abedi founded BCCI in Luxembourg with the backing of Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan, the ruler of Abu Dhabi. From the start, the bank had a structure no regulator fully understood. It was incorporated in Luxembourg, operated out of London, chartered in the Cayman Islands, and managed from Pakistan. No single country had oversight of the whole. That was not an accident. Through the 1970s and early 1980s, BCCI expanded at breathtaking speed. By its peak, it operated in 73 countries, employed 14,000 people, and held $23 billion in assets. It became the 7th largest private bank in the world. Western governments were impressed. What they didn't know, or chose not to see, was that beneath the legitimate facade, BCCI was running a parallel operation. A criminal enterprise of historic scale. The client list reads like a who's who of global crime. Manuel Noriega, the dictator of Panama, kept accounts at BCCI. His drug proceeds flowed through it. Saddam Hussein used BCCI to secretly purchase weapons and route money around international sanctions. Abu Nidal, the terrorist responsible for the Rome and Vienna airport massacres, was a BCCI client. The Medellin cartel, drug proceeds from Colombia, moved through BCCI branches. But the most extraordinary client was the one that should have stopped all of this, the CIA. Beginning in the early 1980s, American intelligence used BCCI to fund covert operations. Iran-Contra, weapons shipments to the Afghan Mujahideen, black budget operations that could never appear on a government ledger. Senate investigators later concluded that the CIA not only knew BCCI was a criminal enterprise, they actively protected it. Because BCCI was useful. A bank with no real regulator, no transparent ownership, and branches in every country where America needed to move money quietly. The CIA's relationship with BCCI meant that every time a regulator got too close, someone made a phone call, and the investigation stopped. In the United States, BCCI operated through a proxy. Its American front was First American Bankshares, one of Washington, D.C.'s most prestigious financial institutions, and the man running it was Clifford. Clifford was 75 years old, a former Secretary of Defense under Lyndon Johnson, an advisor to presidents since Harry Truman, one of the most respected men in Washington, which was exactly why BCCI needed him. Clifford claimed he didn't know BCCI secretly controlled First American. He said he was deceived. Federal prosecutors didn't believe him. In 1992, Clifford was indicted at 85 years old. After 6 decades of public service, his trial was eventually severed due to his deteriorating health. He never faced a jury. He died in 1998, maintaining his innocence. BCCI survived not because its crimes were invisible, but because stopping it was inconvenient for the people with the power to stop it. That is how a bank with $23 billion in assets and branches in 73 countries can operate as a criminal enterprise for 2 decades in plain sight. The people who knew were either on the payroll, in contact with someone who was, or had decided the problem was simply too large to manage. Warnings came early, and they were buried, not always with a phone call. sometimes just with institutional silence. Back in London, the Bank of England had been receiving warnings about BCCI for years. Price Waterhouse, BCCI's auditor, filed a report in 1990 flagging massive irregularities. The Bank of England sat on it for a year. It was a U.S. Customs investigation, Operation Sea Chase, that finally broke it open. Undercover agents posed as drug traffickers. They moved dirty money through BCCI for 2 years. In 1988, BCCI pleaded guilty to money laundering in Tampa, Florida. They paid a $14 million fine and kept operating. The fine was the cost of doing business. What finally ended BCCI was the work of a Manhattan district attorney named Robert Morgenthau. Morgenthau was 71 years old and had been investigating BCCI for 3 years, largely alone, while federal agencies dragged their feet. He later said publicly that the Justice Department tried to shut down his investigation multiple times. On July 5, 1991, Morgenthau coordinated with regulators in 62 countries. At the same moment, simultaneously, BCCI branches around the world were seized and locked. The numbers were staggering. Nearly $10 billion had been looted from the bank through fraud, theft, and phantom loans that were never meant to be repaid. Approximately 1 million depositors, most of them ordinary people in Pakistan, Bangladesh, and across the developing world, lost their savings overnight. They had trusted a bank that was, in the words of one Senate report, a full-service criminal enterprise. The human cost was concentrated at the bottom. While BCCI's elite clients, the dictators, the intelligence agencies, the arms dealers, had long since moved their money, the ordinary depositors had nowhere to go. Families lost retirement savings. Businesses collapsed. In some regions of Pakistan, the BCCI failure wiped out entire communities. Agha Hasan Abedi suffered a stroke in 1988, years before the collapse. He fled to Pakistan, where he died in 1995, never extradited, never tried. Swaleh Naqvi, his successor, received a prison sentence in Abu Dhabi. He was released early and largely disappeared from public view. BCCI's Abu Dhabi shareholders, the ones who had propped up the fraud with billions in secret support, reached a civil settlement. They paid $1.8 billion out of $23 billion in assets for a bank they had owned. The Kerry Committee report, formerly titled The BCCI Affair, was published in 1992 by the U.S. Senate Foreign Relations Committee. It is one of the most comprehensive investigations of financial crime and intelligence corruption ever published. Its conclusions were damning. BCCI had been protected by the very agencies tasked with stopping it. The report named names. It documented CIA involvement. It described how federal prosecutors were pressured to slow-walk their investigations. Most of it was quietly ignored. 3 Pakistani bank regulators who had been investigating BCCI in the late 1980s died under suspicious circumstances. None of the deaths were ever fully explained. BCCI changed the rules of global banking. In the aftermath of its collapse, regulators redesigned the international framework for supervising banks that operated across multiple jurisdictions. The principle that no regulator had full oversight of BCCI, the deliberate structural blind spot that Abedi had engineered from the beginning, was closed. New international agreements required that a single home regulator maintain oversight of any bank's global operations. But the deeper lessons were harder to legislate. BCCI had demonstrated that when intelligence agencies find a criminal enterprise useful, the normal mechanisms of law enforcement stop working, that the victims are almost always the people with the least power. Agha Hasan Abedi wanted to build the first bank of the developing world. He built something else entirely, a bank that served every criminal on earth, and a system so deliberately complex, so perfectly designed for invisibility, that it took 19 years, an 85-year-old district attorney, and regulators in 62 countries acting simultaneously to bring it down. The branches are gone, the accounts are closed, but $13 billion is still missing, and 1.4 million people never got their money back. New investigations every Tuesday and Friday at Folded Bills.